Eskerrik asko.
Thank you very much. Please, if the photographers will sit down, we can commence the press conference. Let me introduce you to a large part of the members of the film La Trinchera Infinita, The Endless Trench, in the official section from right to left. Olmo Figueredo, producer Xavier Berzosa, director José María Goenaga, the actress Belén Cuestia, Antonio de la Torre, actor, the director John Garanyo, and also Aitor Arregui, the other director, and Vicente Vergara. First question.
Vamos a empezar con las preguntas.
Yes, let's commence with the questions, please. Hi, congratulations, first of all. I liked the film, and plus the portrayals were excellent. I had a friend who wanted to come to the press conference, and she asked me to ask you a question for her. The question is about a documentary which is called 30 Years of Darkness. I would like to know whether you've seen it, whether it has anything to do with this. Hi, thank you. Yes, it was the starting point of this film. 30 Years of Darkness was produced by La Claqueta and Irusoin, the production companies, the co-producers. Is that me? No. The co-producers, along with Moriarty of The Endless Trench. And it was precisely in this festival where I saw the documentary, and it seemed to me that there was a very interesting story to be told as a fiction film. But above all, because we can see right away that these molds are an ideal material for an allegory upon fear. And also from the outset, it was quite clear that the story should be told from the point of view of the person who's locked up in the hiding place, because there's a lot of empathy with Rosa, who is his wife. So therefore the approach, that was the premise was from there, to not leave the hiding place and to see 30 years of history of this married couple, but also 30 years of a country, albeit it's off camera, and to see how that enclosure and that fear conditions these characters and their relationship. Next question, please. Hi, I'm back here. Congratulations for the film, which I think is so powerful. And I'd like to ask the directors, what do you tell the young people who didn't know who these molds were, the millennials nowadays, and also to the actors Antonio and Belén? Give us your point of view from Andalusia, and how was working with these directors that have made very Basque films, and what's it like to mix that up between Andalusia and the Basque Country, because the directors are from the Basque Country? Well, what does the film tell millennials? Well, it's complicated for me to answer your question. What we want, the truth is to create a sort of dialogue between the past and the present, bring everything that's happening in the film and that the spectators nowadays can understand, that it appeals to them. I don't know, somebody said is that to a certain extent, clothes change, but human concerns are eternal. The same thing that happened 80 years ago can be clearly reflected to the present day. And that's what you aspire to, really, to reinforce that conversation, and above all, so that the spectator can complete the film at the end of the day after seeing it. When you're in a creative process, that's one of your greatest objectives, that is to say, so that the film may be yours, but it's also the spectators and the audience, so that the film can grow, and for young people as well as for not so young people, we hope this story will appeal to them and call to them, and let's hope it grows within their heads. Let's hope that's the case. To add something to this, the film always wants to be an allegory upon fear, I think, and my partners as well. Because if he stays at home, it's because of fear. If he's so much hiding, it's also because of fear for them, and it appeals to that. We're all feared. We all fear something. That's a universal thing. Where some people fear X amount of things, and others fear of taking that step forward. And we said that leave your job, come out of the closet, whatever. And I imagine the millennials will also have a lot of fear at the same time. Some of them. That's also quite relative. Oh, yes. Yes, about the accent. That's all we've got to do. That's it. I thought you were going to start. No. We think that's one of the great fears that we had, Antonio and myself. I know. To not fall into Andalusia is very complex, and there's a great variety of, and the film is placed in it's not in a specific town. We don't know. You don't speak the same way in Cadiz or Malaga or in Seville. So we did come to an agreement that in many different towns and villages there is different little accents, but we wanted an honesty and a truth that was fundamental to be able to tell the stories, to use an accent, because the Andalusian accent from now is different to the one in the 1930s. So therefore, we got together people from the town. We had our advisors. In the rural world, there's a sentence that also a regular. It was very difficult, but there were some expressions. To give you an anecdote, a person who is illiterate, a shepherd that I met, he gave us a sentence, and he says, whoever's got parsley inside, the branches come out of their mouth. This is a man, a shepherd in 2019 who's never seen the sea, or at least when I saw him last year. I don't know whether this year he's going to see the sea, but to give you an example, he gave us that phrase, and there are many other things. And everything we've inherited from our parents and the towns, we can tell the millennials that's where we come from. But not only in the accent, but also to try to find how you called things. Like, for example, you were investigating, researching the people during the war would call war or not. Yes, of course, because I remember the biography of Ferdinand Gomez. He says, let's hope when this finishes. When's this going to finish? So there's a certain type of language. I don't want to go in depth because I don't want to give a thesis about the Andalusian or those people that are outlawed, but that was important for the film could look real. I said, well, what if you don't understand you? We're going to San Sebastian Film Festival. Well, why don't they give us subtitles? Because people might not understand our accent. Well, when I make films, no, people don't understand me anyway, so, but I could probably talk about this because this is very exciting. Thank you very much for asking me, Maria. I want to thank the directors that they trusted us, Vicente and Belen and myself. We are the best thing they can find in the first people they can find in the market to portray these Andalusian characters, and I want to thank you very much if it looks believable. And also there are many people from villages that read the script, that contributed a lot to us, and they've put that little grain of a shovel of sand in the endless trench. Hi. For John, congratulations for John. You've managed to achieve a climate of asphyxia almost. How do you do that? It's very difficult to do this. And for Antonio, did you get your ID card at the end? Did you get your ID card at the end? Yes, I did get my ID card. Well, the story takes place, if you've seen the film, I imagine, so for 33 years. So there was a beginning where everything is much more, there's much more burdensome and much more oppression, so the camera had to do the same thing. because on the shoulder and very sharp cuts, we didn't understand. Some people, we didn't understand the actors. We're a bit lost. We don't know who they are. And especially at the beginning, we wanted to transmit that anxiety we didn't know, or anguish. We didn't know what's happening outside. And not knowing what's happening outside is something at the beginning of the film is done very harshly, but as the film goes by, they start to relax, and the camera does the same thing. Everything is much more contemplative, but it's not normal because we're in a situation in which we see the film, like Jose Mari says, from Higinio's point of view, and his reality is cut off, really, because he doesn't see everything, he doesn't hear everything, so therefore he's got to interpret all of those things. There are moments in which he says he doesn't trust his family because they're hiding things from him. So therefore we obviously have wanted to convey that feeling of loss or confusion, perhaps, at the same time. I'll leave that in the air. No. I said, I was just saying, he speaks really well. No, that's not true. I'm a bit complex. No, actually, I've got a complex of talking. Just like, as you can see, reality from the point of view. The ID card, yes, I got the ID card, my ID card at the end. Do you want me to explain how I get an ID card now? How do we do that? Hi, good morning. I would like to ask the directors of the experience of shooting outside their comfort area of stories from the Basque Country, and Antonio de la Torre, whether the shoot was excessively claustrophobic. Did you work upon this issue and you wanted to be in that situation or not? How did you research claustrophobia and being enclosed? Well, the shooting of the project or the film, there were certain doubts because on the one hand, as you say, we're leaving our comfort area. We're telling a story that happened a long time ago in Andalusia. Our mantra was always, what's going to happen here in the Basque Country? These Basque people that come here to talk about a story about Andalusia, about a mole and his wife in a small village. And in that sense, initially, we were a trifle concerned, but logically, every film has a challenge. There's no small film, as our director of production says, or production manager says. Well, we were very lucky on the one hand that we wanted to do a Basque Andalusian projection, a half Andalusian, half Basque crew, and therefore this means we've got to adjust and get to know whether we're rowing in the same direction and we've got the same film in our heads, because we always say that communications sometimes are a miracle. Are we really understanding each other well? With the previous crew, we had done several films, shot several films, so you've always got that fear. But from the first moment, we felt very well, we understood each other, and the fear, and also the actors and the commitment that they've shown to the story, to the film, how they've, with specific phrases and sentences, that is to say, they do research from their family and people around them. And just like Antonio says, a person who's not seen the sea, well, imagine the value that has. And I think that slowly but surely fitted into the story. And in that sense, the directors are very happy for the entire process of making the film. About claustrophobia, well, you do what you can, because at the end of the day, it's a representation of something that it's unimaginable. The truth is, as of late, I'm fortunate enough of participating in projects which is, so God doesn't give me everything that I can bear. For example, what capacity? How could these human beings survive? It's almost impossible. It's a great question. I can't answer, Conchita. You do what you can. At the end of the day, you try to concentrate. You try to be there, working with your colleagues. I don't know. You bring it out from your innards almost. And I'm thinking of what I would do if I were there. It's like the myth of Plato's caverns. For example, you try to imagine what happens, and you do what you can. If you see it, and I've conveyed this, when you watch a film, there's no specific formula. I don't think there's a formula. I don't believe, but every actor, there's no formula to perform or to perform your role. Yet, excuse me, but in this film, what happened quite a lot was many sequences were divided into two clearly divided fields. You have the field of Higinio Antonio, where we see him and we look at it, feel anguish and react and see what happens outside. We see what happens outside. So when we shot the film, we shot practically, chronologically, the entire film practically. And there are moments, and Antonio, instead of seeing what's going on, is not, he's seeing a camera in front of him, so therefore there are many moments where we had to explain exactly what was happening outside at that moment. And sometimes Antonio, I think, he's a very organic actor, and sometimes we didn't explain what happens in the script, but something similar that could generate that feeling. Yes. And then my colleagues, I want to take Vicente and Belen, I want to thank them. They worked very much for me, because quite often, for me and for the film, obviously, but they took a lot of shots. Me looking out with my eyes, they do a sequence in front of me, giving everything they could. So it was like a small puzzle. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, and then we stopped for the physical change. 5 weeks, I think it was, and then the makeup sessions were pretty heavy. They were really heavy. The truth is, I remember from another film based upon true events, Rueda says, any verb from Spanish, you apply time, and if you apply time, it's torture. Well, even so, when you're being made up for 5 hours, you go, oh my gosh, do something, but stop putting my makeup on. But Yolanda Pina, I want to congratulate, and Nacho Diaz and the whole team, makeup team, I think I want to congratulate them, because they did a great transformation work. Hi, good morning. I want to congratulate you, first of all, for this production. I think you surprise us more and more, and this puts not only the Basque, but the Spanish cinema very high. For Xavier José Mari, there are 2 or 3 scenes with a fine political sarcasm, but the Spaniards would probably understand this much better, and they make us smile. Did you think, within the entire story, to leave that message in there, politically speaking, José Mari, or not? Well, what the political is part of the context, and that's quite clear, but we did want to talk about the political standpoint from without any intention of giving any sort of discourse. I was just thinking, how could they live politics, or those elements of the political and social life at that time? A couple, that's a married couple in a little house in a small village in Andalusia. For us, it was very important for all of that to be, that context to exist as a backdrop, but at the same time, looking at it or approaching it in a way which is quote unquote almost domestic. So therefore, at the end of the day, if you're going to talk about Franco, you're not going to talk about how bad we are and how oppressed we are, because you can already see that. But to talk about something as stupid as his voice, but for us, it was very important to have a more human approach to it. This doesn't mean we're turning our back to reality or what happened, which is trying to portray, but that exists. But what we were very interested in focusing upon humanity and the psychology of these 2 characters. And sometimes it's unnecessary to launch any sort of grandiloquent discourses. All we wanted to do was give a small portrait of what was happening. First of all, congratulations for the film, because I think for the time being, it's the film that I most liked in the festival. And I had 2 questions for you. The first, as regards to the film, it's based upon in true events, and to what extent is it invented because of script reasons? And the other question is, it refers to something that happened yesterday when the press saw it. There's a moment in the film that the characters of Bella Encuesta is talking about Franco, which I think she sees him in the noto in the newsreel with the description that she gives of Franco. It's as if the majority of the audience did start to laugh quite a lot. The question is whether the reaction that it caused in the audience is in agreement with what you wanted to achieve when you thought about shooting that scene. Yes, undoubtedly, yes. For us, within the drama that we're trying to portray, it was important for there to be a little bit of humor, because otherwise humor sometimes is much more explicit, and perhaps in that sequence it's a bit more explicit. But we also think there are other moments in the story there can be a certain irony, perhaps not of laughing, but humor is not so much that something makes you laugh, but it places you as a spectator in a certain mood, puts you into a certain mood. And I think there is a bit of this in the film, that when you see it, it might, depending on when you see it, might make you laugh more or less. But the truth is, quite clearly, this moment was a moment in which we were trying to, I'm not too sure, to making people laugh, or at least make the spectators and the audience smile. Hi, good morning, congratulations for the film. The truth is, it's a qualitative leap forward in each of your productions. The three directors, Aitor, John, and Jose Mari, how do you direct in a short period of time a film, the three of you together, because it's got to be very complicated. The rock band split up, but you continue. We're still together for the time being. We'll see what happens. No, we're going to do it between four of us. Another director in the future, our next project. No, that's a joke. Yeah, people destroy. The first important film that we made was Lucio. It was a documentary with Jose Maria and then Len Loreac, Jose Maria and I, and the last one, Andia, which was Aitor and I, and now the three of us. It was that's exactly the combination that we write. Now Belen Antonio will be in the next one. We've done, two of us have done previous projects, and we had to do three in this one. So it was a circumstance which was quite special. That's why, as Antonio said, the shot was divided. The shooting of the film was divided into two parts. So therefore, in the shooting, the three of us, the first part, were never there at the same time. In spring, Jose Maria and Aitor were there, and I was with the editing team. Then we stopped 15 weeks, especially so that 5 weeks, sorry, so that Antonio could put on some weight. He had to put on 12 kilos, and he ended up putting on 15 kilos. A lot of French fries and a lot of meatballs. And then in the second part, Jose Maria and I were there. Even in the shoot, there are many questions have to be answered, and what we tried to do is separate our functions. One is more with the actors, and the other one is with the technical crew. But we wanted to make sure that one person is the interlocutor with the actors. And as regards to production and post-production, that is where, especially in the pre-production, we try to set the basis of what it's going to be, or the foundations. In the first part, I was there physically, but then I went to the US and complicated the pre-production a lot more. And I want to thank Aitor and Jose Mari for the patience that they've had for me, because after spending at 11 o'clock at night and connecting with me, and they had to suffer, and they were complaining all the time, but nevertheless, things went well. Quite often we didn't even connect with him. We didn't even get in touch with him. Well, the truth is, Jose Mari would leave, and Aitor would tell me everything, would whisper that into my ear. I say that publicly here. And then the editing and post-production, I don't know why it becomes from documentary films. That's what our strong point. That's when we start to discuss things and get angry at each other and fight, and then we become friends again. All of these dramas that we live through, in the process takes a bit long, but that's the way we work. And I think that meanwhile, while at war, we'll continue that way. From the outside, we understand it's quite strange to have. It's almost freaky. That is to say, This is what we've been doing for the last 20 years, working together. It's almost natural for us to work this way. Sometimes, just like John said, the combinations, or he that's in the shade is also contributing a lot, albeit he hasn't signed as a director. But between one thing and another, we believe that this makes the film makes it more robust, more solid. There was a question that wasn't answered before, which was about the molds, whether it's based upon true events. And how good was my portrayal. No. About the molds, what can I say? It's inspired in true events, real cases. After seeing 30 Years of Darkness, the documentary, I personally didn't know who molds were. And then you can see there's bibliography and even films where they've been dealt with and have addressed the issue. And then you read the book by Emmanuel Eguileche and Jesus Torbado, The Molds, Los Topos. There's a series of cases there. And then I must say that we were able to benefit from all of the documentation work that from La Claqueta, Emmanuel H. Martin, and the documentary director and the documentalist, I don't remember his name, who had also did all this work for the documentary that we saw. So therefore, we were able to see the elements that characterized each of the different cases of these molds, and we took what we were most interested in. So we thought this might be interesting, this other thing might be interesting, but always looking to create fiction so that we could have the freedom of taking the storyline the way we wanted to not be serving a specific single figure. So therefore, in that sense, it was very important as an inspiration, all of these cases of these molds, but then we created Eugenio and Rosa, who are fictitious characters. Hi, good morning. I reiterate my congratulations for the film because I think you've made a very important film upon the civil war and the dictatorship. Time will tell, but I would like to say that it's great to Basque Andalusian co-production cooperation to tell a story. I hope this example will continue and that this connection, North-South, Basque, Andalusian, is the beginning of a great friendship. Take advantage of the Andalusian producers being here. I want to ask the actors, Belén Cuesta, as well as how she constructed that great, what references did you use? And Antonio de la Torre, with shooting this film, did you remember Mujica and your role of the Night of 12 Years, where you also played another person who was enclosed? Well, before Aitor was talking about Lucio and also 30 Years of Darkness, it's great to see how at the end things coincide and projects come together. I remember the first day I called Xavi Berzosa because we'd just seen Lucio and I thought it was a marvelous film. I said, that's it. For 30 Years of Darkness, we need these co-producers to help us with the experience because it was the first feature documentary and the first one for La Claqueta, the production company. We hope that it'll be the beginning of a great friendship, but we'd already been working for many years. With 30 Years of Darkness, we started in 2008. It seems that we're 11 years later with studying the molds, but those 30 Years of Darkness and this project, Xavi and I have spent 5 years with a documentary series and fighting for it, but we're always thinking about new things to do. But the truth is, this cooperation, North-South cooperation, shall we say, saved the project at the end of the day, because in a moment where there was a lot of instability in Spain with the aid from the ICA and TV, for example, ETV and the Basque government, as the Andalusian government and Canal Sur helped us from the beginning, and with something we have to recover and do much more. No matter we focus just on Madrid to achieve all of the aid we need to make the film. But I think we've learned a lot, and I think, quite fortunately, I hope we can collaborate much more. Let's hope so. Anything to say? It's a pleasure to work with friends. The spirit that we can you breathe in our company in direction, it's transmitted into our production. everything is impregnated in collaboration. To find people with which you connect personally as well as professionally is great. So we will continue to thank you very much for the treatment of the Andalusian government accent, because I wrote to a friend, a colleague the other day in Andalusia, and I said, it's quite curious that 3 BAS directors have had to come to give the most beautiful and the most careful and delicate treatment of the Andalusian language. I knew they were going to do it because seeing Loriak and Andia and the treatment that they've given to the Basque language, I knew they were going to do a good job, but the expectations, they've exceeded expectations. So congratulations to all of you. Rosa, let's see. Well, for me, the good luck of being able to tell this very important story is one, but also the time that we've had to be able to prepare it, because normally you don't usually get this case to prepare yourself individually, but we knew that the film was going to be shot, and the dates that we had, Antonio and I had to do our individual work individually to learn how to sew, first of all, to sew with a sewing machine, and to document ourselves on how to do all of this, and to see all the references that the directors gave us of books and bibliography to read. And there, as of there, well, we constructed everything, coming to agreements and discussions that took place that have been very interesting, of studying the script, but very in detail, because which is very important and a key element so that we could all understand the story in the same way, or understood quite well who these characters were and what happened to them. So therefore, for them, I've been very lucky to be able to work for so long on the character of Rosa and on this story. Apart from references, well, for example, we tried to find something local. I'm from a small town in Malaga, to try to find women physically and the way they spoke. But it was very detailed, because we came to a lot of agreements. My character, I think, pronounces the S like a C, or vice versa, and so therefore C as an S, and so forth. And also, it's quite frightening to build a character, a woman, for that long period of time, who suffers, who's afraid, who takes care and struggles, and who gets old, who's a mother. She's many, many things. It's very interesting for me. And I say it, I've been very lucky. I want to thank them very much. And it's been, for me, it's one of the most important stories that I've been able to tell in my career. So therefore, I'm very happy. That's it. A question for Antonio. Antonio. Yes. I remembered Mujica. Yes, I called him up. I said, what would you have done if you were being Andalusian? He said, well, I don't know. I don't know. I could reflect upon many things, but the truth is, I was talking about the phrase of any verb in Spanish, if you add time, it ends up being torture. I remember there's a man who said this died, and that film, I learned something that obviously can be transferred to this film, and that is to say, and I hope it'd be great that someone takes home from the film, but that in the worst circumstances, as Mujica says, you can make honey. And that's what he used to say. Despite everything, they come out and they're still together, and then he realizes that he's got to get it. He's got to get his ID card, because we've got to go tomorrow to get an ID card. And then what he was asking, in our molds, all of a sudden, there was an anecdote, all of a sudden. The biggest problem on the next day, we're concerned, because we had to buy shoes all of a sudden. There's something prodigious, is that life continues. Despite the horror, the terror, and the fear, and the war, life continues. So we've got time for one more question. Hi, congratulations. And a couple of questions. On the one hand, you've talked about leaving the comfort zone and recording outside the Basque Country for the time, bearing in mind that you won 10 Goyas with Andia, and you've got a lot of backing from the academy and the film industry vis-a-vis the future. Is this a path that you want to go down, or is it just now for or one-off? And also, I would like to know, within the house, have you had any cinematographic or artistic reference for the shooting in the... Well, to the first question, let me answer. And you answer the second. Well, okay, here we go, discussing who answers. As regards to the first question, I would like to tell you that the story sets the reality. The truth is, when we get together, we give ideas and we address what type of story is powerful, not only the narrative, but also of other different layers within the story. Sometimes it's difficult, but according to this, we value whether we continue with that idea or not. It's always based upon the story. It's not a change of strategy. We, first of all, and above all, we're worried about the strength and the power behind the story, and then how it's developed gives the weight and importance to the story. In that sense, we don't value if it's going to be a one-off or not at this present moment, for example. And at different times, we have a project which is just at the beginning, initial stages, which is in Spanish. We've got another one in Catalonian, and in German, another two stories that could be in Basque. We don't know what projects we'll end up making, and there's another one in English that we've got in the still in the drawer. So therefore, it all depends upon the power of the story, and that's how Moriarty has worked, our production company, practically from the outset. So that's how we've worked normally. The story also sets up the language that we're going to tell it in. And then, formally speaking, to tell you the truth, well, references, quite often, it's risky, but it is true that some things we do bear them in mind, the references. I'm not too sure from the planning standpoint, but how to develop the perspective or the slant we took on it. But the script, undoubtedly, Luis Verdejo and I, it was quite... And also the film, Polanski, for example, was present. And so therefore, it wasn't so much a war film or references of war films. It was more, for example, in those apartment films that Rosemary's Babies or Tenant, for example, those types of films were in our minds. I'm not too sure how much of that remained in the film as you see it on the screen, but there was a certain reference and intention of sharing the point of view of the protagonist, and also of creating moments in which you don't know of what they're saying or what you're seeing is their imagination or whether it's reality, so on and so on. So therefore, that was there, and I'm not too sure whether the planning of the film, it has been truly conveyed or portrayed well. There are oniric sequences that we've edited out, and also in the planning process, I think that the initial proposal, basic proposal, we already saw how to plan it. We knew quite clearly the objective sides of things would appear fragmented. That is to say, we had to see some parts, one part and the other, and also the importance of sound. But all of that, to a certain extent, is something which is the basis of our proposal. Yes, we also had something that we haven't mentioned. I don't remember very well, but I remember Bon Carvi, especially in the mood of love. That's a when the framing was quite present there, the way we did things in the film, and I remember it's a place that we can base ourselves on. How much they can see, and in the story of the mole, for example, I remember it's what he can see, or what that little hole allows you to see, so you can see through that little hole or a little crack in the door. So a lot of tests have to be done to see whether it works or not, that type of system. Thank you very much, everyone. To the cast and crew, thank you for your questions. Thank you.